Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever. I forgot last week to mention that last week's nugget was the 300th nugget. So for 300 weeks we've been doing one of these weekly nuggets. If you remember, it was back in the time of COVID to communicate with you, to thank you in a small way and just communicate the gospel with you, to give you a weekly meditation. So thank you for all your support. We've managed to keep it going for 300 weeks without a break. And please God, if it's meant to be, we'll continue for another 300 weeks and then see what happens. But thank you for your support. In Robert Louis Wilkins' magisterial history of the first 1,000 years of Christianity, a key point that he makes early in the book, one he says which is of capital importance, is that those who carried on the mission of Jesus were the same men and women who had followed Jesus during his lifetime. In other words, they were, in the fullest sense of the word, witnesses. Obviously, they'd been transformed by the resurrection. Nothing else makes sense as to what would move fishermen, prostitutes, and tax collectors to defy death and torture to proclaim the gospel. However, the precursor to that was the experience of being with Jesus, seeing him, hearing him, loving him. They knew, even if imperfectly, as I said last week, who he was, not only a man like no other, but the incarnate God. St. Paul, a man transformed after meeting the risen Christ, in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 14, says that the love of Christ urges us to proclaim the gospel. Other words are that the love of Christ compels or controls us. Woe, as St. Paul said in another place, to me if I do not proclaim the gospel. For those who were with Christ, either when he was on the earth before his death and resurrection, or who experienced his risen presence, there is a sense of both compulsion and inevitability about spreading the word of their experience. They could do no other. Leo XIV, the successor of St. Peter, using that verse from the letter to the Corinthians, said that this urging or compulsion to spread the gospel is because, for the disciples then and now, that Christ's love possesses us, envelops us, and captivates us. This is what it means both to be a missionary and evangelist, possible both in mission lands and in our home, office, or factory. This is in fact the only true way that there can be anything approaching a revival or renewal of the faith. It's worth briefly looking at the meaning and etymology of those words. To be possessed, as in the demonic sense aspect, is to be under the complete power of something or someone else, to be seized and controlled. To be enveloped is to be completely enclosed and surrounded by something. To be captivated from its root is not only to be captured, but attracted, or better, entranced by something or someone. A Christian, man or woman, is a person possessed, enveloped, and captivated by the person of Jesus Christ. His power over us must be absolute in every aspect of our lives, as the old phrase has it, thought, word, and deed. He continues to entrance in his church through his word, but especially his sacraments, and entrance they must, if seekers are to be then enveloped and possessed. A trite, superficial practice of the faith will do none of those things and will not attract. Ultimately, of course, as always, it is the saint who embodies those three things. It's time for the church and for each one of us to be possessed, enveloped, and captivated by no one or no thing, including political ideology, other than the person of Jesus Christ. Brethren, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, like a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour.